What's going on, guys? This is Mr. Teej, 66 Movie Reviews. I am Mr. Teej. Excellent! Bogus! What am I talking about? Well, today I am going to be reviewing a childhood favorite movie of mine, 1989's Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I loved this movie so much as a kid, but the big thing is, does it hold up today? And the answer is yes and no. It is incredibly dated. It's very much of the 80s, and at the same time, it's almost, I don't know if it's a comment on the 80s. To me, it's a comment on the 80s. It probably wasn't, originally intended to be that, but that's what it feels like to me watching it all these years later. The writing is surprisingly clever. It's one of those goofy, stupid teen comedies which has like an underlayer of like sarcasm and irony to it. And the plot, well, insofar as there is one, no, actually there's a plot, what am I saying? Concerns Bill S. Preston Esquire and Ted Theodore Logan, played by the future superstar Keanu Reeves, and Alex Winter, who unfortunately didn't really go on to much of anything. They're these two California teenagers who were, kind of idiots, they're slackers, and they want to start a band called Wild Stallions, and they're not doing very well in history class, and they're about to flunk, and if they flunk, Ted's father is going to send him to military school in Alaska, and the band is going to be broken up, and that can't happen because in the future, the band's music, unites the cosmos, brings about world peace, so the people in the future have to send George Carlin as Rufus back to 1988 to make sure that they pass their history report, and how he's going to do that is there's a magical phone booth. Yeah, remember phone booths, guys? Yeah, I do too. And they travel back through time and, to help them with their history report, and they're going to let them use the phone booth to go back in time and, collect information on various historical figures. And that's the plot, and they go and wackiness ensues. Eventually they bring some historical figures back to the present, or to 1988, and hilarity ensues. This movie is a riot. There's two levels to it. You'd think it's a stupid teen comedy, and it is, but it feels like a Monty Python sketch in that a lot of it makes absolutely no sense, but yet kind of does at the same time. There's this mixture of there's one part where Bill and Ted meet their future selves from a few days in the future, and they start talking, and then they leave, and then Ted goes to Bill, what if we were lying what if we were lying? And Bill goes, why would we lie to ourselves? It's ooh, deep and philosophical, and yet completely stupid at the same time. The movie rests on Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter's performances, and they are just wonderful. They're not bright, but they're just such lovable guys. They just want to have a good time. Sometimes I think we overthink our lives and they just go with the flow. I think sometimes we need to do that in our lives more. Just go with the flow. And they're so open to everybody. These old historical figures, come up to them, they're like, how's it hanging? Just very blasé. They don't judge. They're just two lovable guys. George Carlin is also great. It's a very small part. He doesn't have a huge role in the film, but he is very funny in the few scenes he does have. The movie is wall-to-wall 80s. The special effects, I love the future scenes. It just looks like the 80s never died. The costume designs and everything. There's these floating, I don't know what they're supposed to be, rulers or something like that? I don't know, but it's just the costume design is absolutely ridiculous. Trivia note, one of them is actually played by Bruce Springsteen's saxophone player, Clarence. I forgot his last name, but recently, he passed away a couple years ago, so rest in peace, So, this movie is a blast. There is one part which, if I had to come up with a flaw of this movie, I guess it is dated, and that could be considered a bad thing, but I really don't consider it a bad thing. I think it's absolutely charming, but were I to be honest with myself, it is pretty dated, so it's both good and bad at the same time. But there is one moment where they use the word fag, unfortunately. It's the 80s, and it's supposed to be really funny, but it comes off as oh god, that has not aged well at all. So that's probably my biggest flaw of the film. I would definitely nip that out if I could. But this movie's great. I love this movie so much. The music is just great too. The soundtrack is pretty good. It's a collection of 80s hair metal bands. I don't think there's really any known bands on the soundtrack, not that I can think of. So that's always a blast. But I love this movie so much. I'm not sure which one I like more, this one or Bogus Journey. It's actually pretty close. I'm not sure. There's just levels of irony all over this movie. It's even slightly educational. I don't know if you really learn that much about historical figures. There's parts where, like, they bring historical figures back to the modern day, and some of the priceless things, like Genghis Khan is ripping apart a sporting goods store, Sigmund Freud and Billy the Kid are trying to pick up girls, Beethoven is playing his electric keyboard. Absolutely priceless stuff. But overall, I would give this movie probably an 8.5. It's pretty solid. It still makes me smile. It's just, there's something very sweet and very good-natured about it, except for the use of the F word there, which is very out of place. But yeah, that overall, that's my movie review. I'll see you next time. I'm from Mr. TH66 Movie Reviews. Hopefully I'll be doing the sequel, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, next time. So I will see you next time.